Good morning, everyone. Welcome back to your English class. Today we will be starting a new block, that is block number 16, Stopping by Woods on a Snowy Evening by Robert Frost. Robert Frost is an American poet and he writes this poem, and it's a very famous poem. You will learn about it many times in this. You will learn about it many times in your life. Now coming to the title, let's see what the title means. So we know that the word stopping, it means to stop. So we could say that someone is going somewhere on a snowy evening and he stops by the woods along the way. He gets entranced by the woods and he stops to have a look at the woods. Over here, woods is another word for forest. It's a synonym, word which has the same meaning for forest. Evening is the later part of the day. So we can say that a person is going somewhere and he stops by a forest on a snowy evening. Why? Because the forest looks so beautiful that he cannot stop but admire it. So this is your title. Now let's look at the poem and we will analyze it line by line. So the poem starts with the poet going somewhere, and he comes across these woods, and it starts over here like, whose woods these are, I think I know. His house is in the village though. He will not see me stopping here to watch his woods fill up with snow. So he says that he comes, he's going somewhere and suddenly he sees these beautiful, dark, enchanted, snowy woods, and he remembers or he feels that he knows the person the woods belong to. He says that the person's house is in the village, so the person will not see him stopping here to admire the dark and beautiful woods. He will not see him admiring the woods fill up with snow. So that is your first stanza, which is of 4 lines. Then he says, my little horse must think it queer. So he has just one companion who is his horse, and he feels that his horse must be puzzled. His horse must be thinking, why is my owner or why is my master stopping in the middle of the woods or stopping in a deserted area like this? To stop without a farmhouse near. So why would my master stop when there is no farmhouse nearby? Between the woods and frozen lake. So there is a woods and there is a lake, and between that the master stops on the darkest evening of the year. So it is very dark, it's evening. Over here, darkest evening also tells us that it could be the month of December, where it is very cold. The nights are very dark. So he says like, the horse must think that it's really weird that his master is stopping when there is no farmhouse. And he's just stopping between a dark wood, and a frozen lake. And it is really, really dark. Now, when you see this line, you can always think of the setting. Now we know that there is no farmhouse nearby. So this line tells us that the setting is in a countryside or in the countryside because there is no farmhouse nearby. Then over here he comes, he gives his harness bells a shake. So the horse is wearing a bells and he starts shaking it to ask his master, why are you stopping? Is there some mistake? The only other sound, the sweep of easy wind and dewy flake. So The bell over here, you can say that the poet gives us the essence of hearing. Okay, this is the only lines where you can find something which you can hear. Okay, you can find the harness bells, you can find the sound of the wind and the sound of the snowflakes. Okay, so the horse shakes his bells, okay, and because he wants to ask the master if there is some mistake. And the only other sounds that are available in this particular part is the wind and the snowy flakes. Okay, so this is the only part where he describes the sense of hearing. Then he comes to the last stanza. The woods are lovely, dark and deep, but I have promises to keep, and miles to go before I sleep, and miles to go before I sleep. So the poet over here tells us that the woods are beautiful, they are dark, they are deep, they are so enchanting that he wants to just stand there and he wants to admire it forever and ever. But he has promises to keep. Over here, promises could be maybe promises of coming back home at the correct time to a loved one, or it could be the responsibilities of life. Okay, so over here, promises could have many meanings. It could have it could have a lot of meanings. It could mean something simple, just like a promise made to a loved one that I would return home before dark, or it could mean something more practical, like a responsibility that he has to keep. Maybe he wants to go much ahead in life, so he cannot stand there and look at the woods. He cannot waste his time. Okay, and if you notice over here, and miles to go before I sleep, and miles to go before I sleep, over here in simple sense it means he needs to reach home before the day ends. Okay, but if you take it in a more deeper sense, it could mean that before he dies, he has lots of works or lots of responsibilities, lots of promises to complete before he dies. Okay, so over here, this is a very, very simple poem. Okay, it's very symbolic. It has a lot of symbolic nature, which we will not discuss here because I'm just taking this for a grade 5 student. Okay, but it's a beautiful poem and I want all of you to read it and to understand it well. Okay, let me ask you some questions. Okay, so my first question, okay, to you is, where does the speaker stop? So we know that the speaker stops somewhere near the away from the farmhouse. Now, and this, as I already told you, since it is away from the farmhouse, this tells us that the setting is in the countryside. Okay, and what time of the year it is? The words darkest evening tells us that it is late December. Okay, this season is supported like details, okay, supported by details like fill up with snow and frozen lake, because we know that winter season is very cold and we will find snow and frozen lakes only in this particular season. Now, what could be the promise that he has to keep? Okay, the promise could be his responsibilities. The promise could be maybe a simple thing, just like a promise that he would come home before dark. So you can write anything over here. Okay, and why are these two lines repeated? Okay, miles to go before I sleep. The line is repeated, okay, because this is the main message of the poem. Okay, the poet wants to tell us that the poet wants to tell us that he is choosing to fulfill his responsibilities instead of staying in the woods. Okay, the woods are really beautiful, they are lovely, they are dark, they are enchanting, and he wants to stop there and he wants to admire them, but he has a lot of responsibilities, so he decides that he needs to move on. He needs to fulfill his responsibilities. So these lines, okay, these lines, they are repeated because they're very important. They are the main message. Okay, and the main message is that the poet chooses to fulfill his responsibilities even though he wants to stay and admire the beautiful and dark woods. Okay, another point for you to know. Okay, this poem deals with the sense of hearing. These are the lines that tell us when it is used. Okay, so he gives his harness bells a shake to ask if there is some mistake. The only other sound the sweep of easy wind and dowy fleek. So I've already told you. Okay, this is the only lines that deal with the sense of hearing, and I've already told you, okay, that the last stanza means that the poet is choosing his responsibilities in life over his interest in life. He wants to stand and he wants to admire the beautiful woods, but he is choosing his responsibilities instead of staying and admiring the woods in the evening. Okay, so this is all for today. I want you to do S1. So the first question in S1 is tick the sentences that describe the poem. Question number 2 is identify and write the lines from the poem that describe what the poet can hear, which is already given over here. It is your second, I think it's your second stanza. Okay, and then you have what does the line I have promises to keep mean? I've already told you, okay, what does the line I have promises to keep means. You can write anything over here. Okay, it could be a simple promise as returning home to his loved one at night, or it could be a very different promise like fulfilling his responsibilities. And what do you think is the message? The message is that the poet chooses to fulfill his responsibilities instead of admiring the beautiful, dark and lovely forest. Okay, and what clues from the poem tell you this? The last lines, okay, the last 2 lines tell us this. Okay, so do S1. If you have any doubt, feel free to message me or to contact me. That's all for today. Have a beautiful day. Bye bye.